Zillow's got this report. So Zillow says they're downgrading the U.S. home price forecasts. First time in years they've done this. And this is rare. Like, you don't see home prices go down. Okay. You saw it in the great financial crisis when there was a mortgage crisis. And out of the last 60 years, you saw it like one other time. Okay. Home prices don't just go, and this is national. Okay. So, if your uncle bought a bad deal and you're like, no, that's not true. My uncle's house went down. Maybe he overpaid. I don't know. I'm just giving you national numbers here. Home prices don't really go down on a 12-month cycle. They just don't. You look at the last 4 decades, real estate's up and to the right. Even in the 2000s, you had the mortgage crisis, the great financial crisis. Well, real estate went down that decade, didn't it? No, it actually was up 40% from January 1, 2000 to December 31st, 2009. Real estate was up over 40%. Well, what do you mean? The great financial crisis, the mortgage crisis. Yeah, it went up 85% in the first half of the decade. You saw a 45% decline. This is national numbers. I know Connecticut got beat up a little bit more, so I don't want to give anybody PTS, but this is what happened nationally. And real estate for the decade, home price appreciation for the decade, that is nationally, it went up in the 2000s. Real estate goes up, so this is a rare projection from Zillow. Zillow's got a ton of data, so they downgraded their 12-month forecast. Now projecting a 1.7% year-over-year drop in U.S. home values by March of 2026. So this forecast is from March to March. Zillow's reason, it's a surge in new listings. We're not seeing new listings really jump off the map nationally, but we are seeing active listings. So the accumulation of inventory, supply. This is always listen, real estate's a supply and demand dynamic, and it's an interest rate sensitive industry. Interest rates, supply, demand. Those are the 2 factors you look at. I guess that would be 3: supply, demand, and interest rates. So chief economist over at Zillow, know her, have chatted with her on a number of occasions. Skylar Olson says this: more sellers came out to test their luck as rates ticked down in March, but home sales didn't keep up. Buyers, especially first-timers without equity to pour into their down payment, continue to struggle with affordability and now facing even higher levels of uncertainty. A turbulent economy likely weighs more heavily on first-time home buyers than firmly established sellers. And so here's the thing. They're pointing to this increase in inventory. There's 7 states in the country, Brian, that actually build. Over 50% of the permits happen in those 7 states. Texas and Florida are on the list. Texas and Florida, Louisiana, Gulf of America bordering states are the states that are seeing the biggest increase in inventory. They build there. They've got storms in recent memory that they're dealing with. Who remembers post Superstorm Sandy how much hesitation there was on the Connecticut shoreline for not 3 months, for 3+ years, for 4+ years? I do. Talk about PTS. I have it from that. Okay. Nobody wanted to touch Connecticut shoreline real estate after Superstorm Sandy. You think the west coast of Florida is not dealing with this after the last 2 hurricanes they've had, and they get them more often? So you've got climate, you've got just places that build because they have migration patterns that support it, and they've got too much inventory. So, these are places that I do expect. You're already seeing it in Tampa. Out of the 20 major metros that Case-Shiller, which is historically the gold standard in prices, I like to pull real-time data because they're like 2 or 3 months looking backwards, but Case-Shiller, very accurate. I mean, I can be accurate on anything that happened 2 or 3 months ago. I could be accurate on a blackjack hand that happened 20 seconds ago. I just can't get it ahead of it. So Case-Shiller says that out of the 20 city composite, the major 20 cities across America, Tampa's already in the negatives. They're down a point. Now they've gained, 50, 60% in recent memory on home price appreciation, but they're down a point and a half right now. Tampa's the only one though, but there are signs that Dallas could be next. That Austin is certainly there, but Austin's not in their 20 city composite. So there are other cities that are in the negatives on home price appreciation. Brian, nationally 1.7%, Zillow's forecast. I'll tell you later, we're going to get into it in a little bit, how it impacts Connecticut. Just your thoughts nationally on Zillow's forward-looking forecast.
Yeah, I mean, I think, your point about home values going up quite a bit and then coming down a little bit, you're over a long period of time, the trend is still massively upwards. I was talking with a buyer earlier this week and kind of explained, she was kind of on the fence. Should I buy a home? Should I not? And I was like, look, if you're going to leave Connecticut in the next year or two, just rent. But if you're going to be here for a long time, you're going to come out ahead financially by owning. And I'm trying to instill this in her, but sometimes it's like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink kind of situation. And so she said to me, well, my parents bought a house. And I was like, oh, well, how did that work out for them? And she was like, oh, it was amazing. They bought it 50 years ago for next to nothing. And who'd have thought it was worth way more money 50 years later? And, didn't want to be rude to her while I was talking to her on the phone, but in my mind, I was like, who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? Of course you buy a house, it's going to be worth more 50 years later. Like that's how real estate works. It's well documented. I don't think anybody's ever bought real estate and had to be worth less 50 years later, or
here's
even
the last
20 years later for that matter.
Here's the last four decades. Okay. U.S. home prices went up in the 90s, 30.1%. Okay. Somebody's going to be listening to this say, no, 91, 92, home prices went down. Yeah, they went down like a point or two. And on a decade, if you held your house for 10 years in the 90s, you're up 30+%. Okay. Everybody's a prisoner of the exact moment. Okay. 2000s. The 2000s U.S. home prices went up 47.3%. Okay. At one point, they went up 85%. Okay. I get it. When you bought at 85%, you had to wait a while, about 10 years to come back from that. But over the course of a 10-year run, they were up 47.3%. In the 2010s, they were up 44.7%. We're up almost 50%, and we're only halfway through this decade. Okay. If we lost half of this decade's gains, at the end of the decade, we'd still be up 25%. If we dropped 5% a year over the next 5 years, we'd be up about 25% on U.S. home prices for the decade. The average homeowner tenure is 12 years. Not 12 months, it's 12 years. U.S. home prices go up. I'll tell you why you don't worry about this Zillow forecast for Connecticut. I've got Connecticut's numbers for April dialed up for you. Now, when you look at where most of the inventory, in 2024, our inventory increase came, 40% of it came from Florida and Texas. You're going to have a similar story this year. You're going to have a 40% increase, maybe 50% of the inventory is going to be driven by like 2 or 3 states. Okay. There's only 7 states in the country that drive over 50% of building permits. Inventory is going to be particular to some certain locations where you have more inventory, which is supply. Okay. Where you have more supply, you're going to have downward pressure on prices. I'll give you an example. Okay. Connecticut right now has, on just homes for sale. So we've got, I'll go to the whole state. I'm on a particular town. But we've got, and I'm just going to give you single family here, Brian. Okay. We've got all of April's numbers in. So April, homes for sale, inventory to choose from if you're a buyer, 4,500 plus, 4,561 single family homes for sale. Okay. I just did this it was 6,500 in the Cape Coral region, which is about a couple 100,000 people. 6,500 homes for sale, Cape Coral region, couple 100,000 people, and you got 4,500 here for 3.65 million. Inventory is dramatically different in different parts of the state. So, I mean, different parts of the country. So here's the thing with Connecticut, and I'll just give you some numbers in comparison to what's going on here in comparison to, what maybe Zillow's forecasting or other areas. Homes for sale. We're already at, if you go back the 22 years rather, that the MLS has digital data before they were doing everything was in a book and nobody knew what the heck was going on. Before we had this digital data, or the whole time we've had this digital data, this is the lowest inventory homes for sale Connecticut's ever seen right now. And I mean, I've been saying that for the last couple of years. It's down down 2.6% year over year. Okay. So April of 2024, we had 4,700 homes for sale, single family. We've got just over 4,500. Okay. So this is as of the closeout of April. Now, pending home sales are up 8%. So we had 2,400 pending home sales in April of this past year. In 24, April had 2,250. So about 150 more pending home sales. So that's interesting. But closings are actually down almost a full percent, April over April. They're down 0.7%. Why? There's not a lot of inventory. You're probably seeing this, Brian. Buyers get into contract and then they cancel the contract. When there's not a lot of choices, sometimes you're left with options that feel concerning, or the interest rate is volatile. And then all of a sudden they got to back out because of an interest rate change if they didn't lock in with scheduleloanappointment.com. That's how you lock in. You go to that domain. Or, they got spooked on, oh my gosh, this inspection, there's so much stuff. Why? Because there's not a lot of great options.
Yeah,
we have old inventory. We have old inventory and buyers get spooked. So you have less closings than you did last year, even though you have 8% increase on pendings.